Welcome to I May Be Wrong.
I don't know what this world is coming to.
But I don't think so. We're broadcasting from the greater Nashville area, the home of country music, beyond the borders of political correctness and identity politics. Facts and faith are our demarcations. Truth lights our path.
Here's the Barry White of Podcast Radio,
the Venerable Alfonso Ashworth.
Well, welcome to another exciting episode of I May Be Wrong, but I don't think so. Of course, I'm Alfonso Ashworth. I am here today. Hey, look, if you are someone who gets triggered very easily or who has a very sensitive nature, you should turn away. Maybe come back and look at this at another time. This show is not for the weak. It's not for the faint of heart. It's not for those who are easily triggered. This show is going to hit it right where it needs to go. I want to say good morning to my brother, AT. I see that he's in the chat room on Facebook Live. If you have something you want to say, if you want to make a comment about what I'm discussing today, if you want to have something to add to the program, you can do so. You can text me in the chat room, or you can go to my website at ImayBeWrong.com. There's a chat feature there as well, and I will see your chats as they pop up. If you want to make a comment or ask a question, you can do so. You can find me at YouTube Live as well. I may be wrong, but I don't think so. You can find me there as well. Look, there's a lot happening. I'm going to read something really quickly. It says, there is a class of colored people who make a business of keeping the troubles, the wrongs, and the hardships of the Negro race before the public. Having learned that they are able to make a living out of the troubles, they have grown into the settled habit of advertising their wrongs, partly because they want sympathy and partly because it pays. Some of these people do not want the Negro to lose his grievance because they do not want to lose their job. This was Booker T. Washington. This was a quote from Booker T. Washington in 1911 in his book called My Larger Education. Now, Booker T. Washington, there are two camps that you typically will fall in if you talk to the academics, especially in college and universities on the black campuses. There are two factions. There's the Booker T. Washington group. They will identify with his philosophy, and then there's the W.E.B.D. Du Bois. If you go to that faction, you have two different dichotomies or two different philosophies. Booker T. Washington, a former slave born in the South, raised himself out of poverty, educated, wrote books, became a scientist, did all sorts of wonderful things in the black community that he really does not get a lot of credit for. And then, of course, on the other side, you got W.E.B. Du Bois, who was born in Massachusetts, was not a slave, a mixed race heritage, and was very well educated. And he felt like the government or whites had a responsibility to help blacks gain prosperity. And so you have those two camps today. Now, the show, Shades of Black. Shades of Black, of course, is something that the black community will understand probably more so because we live in a world quite different than what some others who have tried to captivate or who has tried to take over this narrative that Black Lives Matter. This is how this all starts. You have these organizations that come out and they captivate you with these slogans, these fancy little slogans, and they make you feel guilty if you happen to be white. They make you feel guilty. And if you happen to be black, they just ignore you if you will not adhere to their narrative. Of course, welcome to the show, Jeff. Jeff Trotter is in the show this morning. Like I said, if you got something to say. Now, in a second, I'm going to play a few video clips. So I want to set the stage as to what this is about. This is not about attacking anyone. It's not about that. I'm not here to attack a certain group or a certain person. I'm here to just bring you the facts. The facts are the facts. The facts are colorblind. The facts don't care if you male or female, what color you are, how much money you have in the bank. Facts are facts. Joe Biden is a racist. That's a fact. You don't have to believe me. Just go listen to what he says. He's a pandering racist. He's been doing it for 50 years in his politics. The record is clear. Kamala Harris is not black. That's a fact. Her father was a Jamaican immigrant. Her mother was an Indian heritage immigrant. If you look at her background, look at her, she was very privileged. Her family was well-off individuals. A matter of fact, her family owned slaves. They weren't just people of meager means here. Kamala Harris has been privileged her entire life, almost to the same degree that Barack Obama was. Joe Biden picked the lesser of the two situations he found himself in. First of all, he said he was going to pick a woman for his vice president. That was right off the bat. Then right after that, his racism showed up again. He started making these gaffes concerning race. And all of a sudden, that narrative shift from a female candidate to a candidate of color. Never considering a male candidate of color at all. Pretty much left that off the table. So let's listen to these video clips that I have, and then we'll come back with more.
If somebody decides to loot a Gucci or a Macy's or a Nike, because that makes sure that that person eats. That makes sure that that person has clothes. That's reparations. That is reparations. Anything they want to take it, because these businesses have insurance. They're going to get their money back. My people aren't getting anything.
So no longer about Black Lives Matter. It's about reparations.
Presidential candidate
let's listen
Joseph
to Uncle
Biden
Joe
today
Biden.
Faces a controversy.
1988.
3 weeks ago at a debate at the Iowa State Fair, he used phrases identical to those delivered by British Labour Party leader Neil Kinnock.
Biden seemed to be claiming Kinnock's vision and life as his own.
Why is it that my wife, who's sitting out there in the audience, is the first in her family to ever go to college?
Why is Gladys the first woman in her family in 1,000 generations to be able to get to university?
My ancestors who worked in the coal mines in northeast Pennsylvania don't come up after 12 hours and play football.
8 hours underground and then come up and play football.
It's because they didn't have a platform upon which to stand.
There was no platform upon which they could stand.
The notion that every thought or notion or idea you'd have to go back and find and attribute to someone, I think is, quite frankly, ludicrous.
The problem here is that Senator Biden told his audience he'd just been thinking about these things, and he failed to give any credit at all to his famous British speechwriter.
You know, I was thinking on the way over here. Now that's a little too much because, as you point out,
folks, this is when reporters used to do their job.
And a lot of people, the rap on Biden
Something
is always
we lack
been,
today.
it's just a surface.
I should have said, to paraphrase Neil Kinnock, it's the only time I didn't, and all the times I've ever used it.
But CBS News found a tape of a second instance.
It reappeared in the New York Times with a new charge, that Biden had appropriated a famous litany from the late Robert Kennedy about what the gross national product cannot measure.
It cannot measure the health of our children,
The health of our children.
the quality of our education,
Word for word. The man is a liar.
joy of
He's
their
a
play.
thief.
For the joy of their play.
Biden gave Kennedy no credit. He has also quoted or paraphrased John Kennedy, Hubert Humphrey, and British Labour Party leader Neil Kinnock, all without credit.
Joseph Biden admitted
I
today
agree,
that
Kathy.
he committed
Kathy
plagiarism
just
when he was
posted
in law
something. I'll
school.
read
He
it.
said it was a mistake, but that it was unintentional.
He quoted 5 pages of someone else's work without proper citation.
I've done some dumb things, and I'll do dumb things again.
You got
He
that
was given
right.
an F.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I've been dumb.
To the political community in Washington, it all seems of a piece. Plagiarism at law school, plagiarism on the stump.
The great communicator. Strike that. The great imitator.
You don't steal verbatim, or when you do, as he did 99% of the time, you give credit.
Biden's critics say he sells himself as a man whose words and visions can inspire a new generation in politics. But if the thoughts, phrases, and visions really belong to others, it's a form of false advertising.
Is it a wise idea, though, to take something that personal, anyway, from another politician and try and appropriate it to your own campaign?
I think it was a stupid thing to appropriate material that was really very personal, that was someone else's.
Most people didn't know who he was, you know, Joe Biden, and now
and
they're
they
going to
still
say,
gonna
oh
vote
yeah,
for him.
he's the guy who plagiarized.
There's a lot of people.
Politically, that's devastating.
These clips are devastating. He looks like a Joe Biden wind-up doll with somebody else's words coming out.
If they're going to do things that are stupid as well as immoral, then they're probably too dumb to have the job of president.
Voters are going to have to decide whether he was dishonest or dumb.
Senator Joseph Biden may have more explaining to do.
The new questions stem from taped remarks of Biden during an April campaign appearance in New Hampshire.
Check this one out.
I went to law school on a full academic scholarship.
He's a liar.
The only one in my class to have a full academic scholarship. Went back to law school and, in fact, ended up in the top half of my class. I was the outstanding student in the political science department at the end of my year. I graduated with 3 degrees from undergraduate school and 165 credits, only needed 123 credits.
Biden now concedes he did not graduate in the top half of his law school class, that he does not have 3 degrees from college, and that he was not named outstanding political science student in college.
Newsweek says Biden actually went to school on a half scholarship, ended up near the bottom of his class, and won only 1 degree, not 3.
Joe Biden ranked 76th in a class of 85 at the University of Syracuse Law School.
Stuff up.
I mean, this guy comes off this whole thing as a flyweight.
Now Biden says Newsweek is right. His memory had failed him.
And I'd be delighted to sit down and compare my IQ to yours if you'd like, Frank.
Joe Biden was victimized by the truth.
Bye-bye Biden. He may not know it yet, but I think this is going to be very difficult for him to recover.
Is Joe Biden dead?
Remember, this
yes
is
or no?
1988.
So.
This is 1988.
Condition.
And he's been allowed to get by
Eleanor.
with this.
Yes, unless he comes in third in Iowa.
Morton.
Dying.
I say dead. We'll be right.
One more clip. One more. You got to hear this.
The Muslim ban on day one. Day one.
Ruby says he needs dementia pills.
Hadith from the Prophet Muhammad instructs,
this is where he's taking us, folks.
Wrong,
this is where we're going.
let him change it with his hand. If he is not able, then with his tongue. If he is not able, then with his heart.
Make no mistake, people. 2020 is our year. Let's dive into it with 2020 vision. We can see clearly that America is fighting for its very soul.
We all come from the same root here in terms of our fundamental basic
The man,
beliefs.
he has
And
no idea
I
what he's
just want to
saying.
thank you for giving me the opportunity, for being engaged, for committing to action this November. It matters. Your voice is your vote. Your vote is your voice. Muslim Americans' voices matter. I'll be a president who seeks out and listens to and incorporates the ideas and concerns of Muslim Americans on everyday issues that matter most to our communities. That will include having Muslim American voices as part of my administration.
But getting out the
Well,
vote, getting our families
all
out
right.
the vote, getting our
Let's keep in mind that we know he's a liar. He plagiarizes. We know he's an idiot. We know he has no clue what's going on around him, what day it is now. And this is the best that the Democrats can pick. Kathy Sawyer says, not about Biden, but I wish we could send everyone who hates this country back to whatever country they or their relatives came from, Germany, Italy, Africa. I don't care. Just go to the country you think is better. There are millions of people who sacrifice everything to come here because they know the opportunity they have here. Exactly. Ruby Ruffin says, so he always shoulda, coulda, woulda. Right? Exactly. AT says, don't worry. He's not going to be their selected president. He will be dropped. Exactly. Kathy Burnett. We had plenty of Muslim voices speaking with Obama. Now we have someone who says, look, he's trying to quote from Sharia law. He don't even have a clue that the quote he used is being used by terrorist organizations. They put the words in his mouth, they wind this clown up, and he just says what they want him to say. This is directly coming from the squad, the group, the cadre, whatever they want to call themselves, AOC and the gang. They need to get a band together because they're about to rock this country to its core. They're about to change everything that you've ever realized to be American is being flipped upside down and backwards. And they're using blacks to do it. You heard the voice of the lady, or you saw the video, who says looting now is reparations. So it's okay to rob and steal and loot and murder and burn if you do it in the name of social justice. This is not something that just started yesterday. Unfortunately, many of you have been asleep and been pretending like everything was going in the way that you thought it would be for your children and grandchildren. If you don't wake up, they're already closing down the schools and educating your children downward instead of upward. There is no upward path in the educational system. The National Education Association, the teachers unions, they are behind this movement to program your children and reprogram them with this ideology of socialism, social justice. Exactly what's going on. And they're using black, brown, this shade of black thing. This is not something that we are experiencing just for the first time. Heck, the Democrats have been using that since Reconstruction. Jim Crow laws, the welfare state. AT says he thinks Sharia law is a woman whose hair he's going to sniff. There's some really good memes out there for this new campaign for Biden and, of course, Kamala Harris, who is not black. Rachel Dolezal and Sean King, the one we call Talcum X, they're more black. Vanilla Ice is more black than Kamala Harris. This is the person who, I don't even want to use the terms that I'm reading, but she pretty much slept her way up to the part of her position in California as Attorney General. She used to work beside and work with the mayor of San Francisco at the time, Willie Brown. It's already a known fact. They were having an affair while both of them were married, or at least he was married. He's admitted that he helped her career along. But this guy even told Joe Biden not to put her on the ticket. She's the worst. If anything, I think, I'm be honest with you, I think he wanted Susan Rice. I think Susan Rice sees a loser and saw a loser in Joe Biden and chose not to pick him, go with him on that ticket. So he had to go with the next best thing, the closest black person he could get. The closest. It's pandering, it's racism, it's sexism. You can look at it. If you don't see anything different, what's going on in the chat room? Rick Turner says, Al, you may be wrong, but I don't think so. Exactly. I'm hitting it. And I'm going to keep hitting it. Jeff Trotter, as Americans, we should all be colorblind and should come together as a country and be one human race. Claudia says, I'm horrified what is happening to this country. Look, I know there are people who have come here from other countries. I've got a guy that's going to come on the show at some point. He's a Coptic Christian. He's from Egypt. And he's been here in America for 16 years, become an American citizen. He works his behind off. He does everything right. He files his taxes. He pays his way. He does everything. He helps his family. He's a good person. And he told me, he said, I want to come on your show. He said, I'm afraid, though. He said, I don't know how to talk and say the things I want to say. But, man, it was in his voice. He is worried that he came to a country to gain freedom and to come here and to build a life for himself and his family. And he says it's getting really bad here. When you hear those voices and you hear people who have come here and migrated here and become American citizens, and they're saying, this is not what I bought into. Then you have Black Lives Matter, who we know for a fact is being controlled and run by Marxists, being funded by Marxists. That money, of course, is being funneled into the Democratic Party. And the Democratic Party would rather see this country burn than to see Trump have 4 more years. They're pulling out all the stops. They're using every black card trick they can pull. And there's more to come. AT says, I thought Kamala said, I believe Biden's accuser. How's she going to walk back all those statements that she made during the Democratic primary debate, where she all but called Biden a racist when she accused him of keeping her off the school bus? She even tried to imply, and she said, I'm not calling you a racist. That's like calling somebody a racist. Anybody knows that. If somebody says, I'm not calling you a racist, look, they're calling you a racist. She called him a racist. She said she believed the women that accused him of sniffing hair and touching them and being inappropriate. The man's been doing it for 35 years in Washington. God only knows what he was doing before, except stealing other people's speeches. And then laughing it off as if he said, I don't remember. Well, he really doesn't remember now. He didn't remember that he was 76 out of 82 in his law class and got an F on the paper because he got caught plagiarizing. He don't remember the fact that he lied and said he had 3 degrees and he only had 1. He don't remember the fact that he said, well, I don't remember those things. Yeah, you don't remember anything except when it's convenient for you. So Joe Biden is being a puppet. He's a puppet being controlled. Miss Paula Mack says, a.k.a. Willie's side chick, Jussie's auntie, and a wolf in sheep's clothes. If you don't know who Jussie is, Jussie Smollett. Kamala Harris was one of the first people who came out in defense of him, actually, and she's also the person behind getting people out of jail who are out here burning and looting. She's behind a fund that helps those people get out of jail. So that was started, of course, and being funded by Kamala Harris and her gang. AT says, then he performed the eulogy for a former Grand Wizard of the KKK and who was a friend and a mentor. Yes, Robert Byrd. If you don't know who Robert Byrd is, he's the former Grand Cyclops of the Ku Klux Klan. He was one of the high-ranking Klansmen who came out later and became a Democrat senator. Not only did she praise or Biden praise this Klansman, but so did Hillary Clinton, and so did Barack Hussein Obama. They all spoke very highly of Mr. Byrd at his funeral when he passed away. Of course, why not? Why not celebrate the person who started the Democrats, who started the Klan? Of course you would celebrate at their funeral. Of course you would eulogize them. And if you want to know something, the Democrats are very clever. They will accuse you of everything that they already have done or are doing. They want to accuse Trump of being a racist. Well, heck, they invented it on the American soil. The Democratic Party is the head honcho when it comes to racism. It was the Democrat who instituted the Jim Crow laws. Separate but equal. It was the Democrats. Of course, Paula says they planned that attack. Senator Byrd and also Hillary Clinton. There was Jeff. Look, anybody that has read or seen some of these articles know that Kamala Harris was just the lesser of the evils. But it was a huge miscalculation. I believe that Uncle Joe Biden has handed Donald Trump his re-election on a golden platter. He chose someone that could pass for black. Now, if you don't know what that means in the black community, if you were light-skinned enough and your hair was less nappy, you could move into another part of the country and you could pass for black. Many did. There's been many movies about it. One of the most famous movies about this is The Imitation of Life. If you hadn't seen it, you need to see that one. That's a classic example of a black person passing as white. Biden chose Kamala Harris because she checks all of the boxes that the Democratic Party is on their platform right now. Identity politics. She's a woman. She can pass for black. She's a liberal. She's a strong progressive. Biden is a weak candidate. He really didn't want to run. If you can remember, Biden didn't get in until later. He didn't want to run. They thought Hillary was going to get in. They had 22 people on the stage, and none of them were carrying well in the polls. Kamala Harris only got 2% of the vote, people. Ruby Ruffin says, Al, you're killing me. I'm trying to educate those who are in the dark. I'm trying to open their eyes to what's going on before it's too late. Look, this pandemic has been a smokescreen to what they're really wanting to do. They're wanting to fundamentally, as Barack Obama put it, fundamentally change this country. They couldn't do it in his 8 years. Trump was elected. It was a total shock to the system because he was not supposed to win. And since he took office, the Democrats had done absolutely nothing but try to undermine his presidency. And when that didn't work, when the impeachment didn't work, the only thing they had left was to start a race problem. It works every time for the Democrats. It's their go-to card. Paula says, I don't think Biden did any picking. Of course he did. The man doesn't know where he is. He didn't know. Look, he didn't know what side of the camera he was on once. He had no idea when to queue up to be on the camera. So, of course, he didn't pick the candidate. Look, AOC and the gang picked their candidate. And AT says, the truth be told, of all the women of color, she fits what America wants to visually see in politics. All the other women look masculine or angry. Right. And I tell you, and AT just hit something, and I wish I had more time to dig into it. Imagine Kamala Harris on a debate stage with Michael Pence. Mike Pence is one of the most calm, collective, put together person. And that's why he really compliments Trump very well. They work well together, yin and yang. Imagine her emotional outburst when she tries to accuse Pence of being a racist, and how Pence is going to pluck her like a chicken, pick her apart, bake, cook, and debone her on that stage, and the world will see. Not only is she not the most qualified, she's also not the sharpest pencil in the box. Of course, I want to thank you, and I see that all those are chatting in the chat room. If you'd like to help us out on this show, it's at I may be wrong, but I don't think so.com. Of course, some comments that are being made, you can read those if you go to my Facebook page. The video will be there. We do a podcast as well. You can find me on all the major podcasts also. Ruby Ruffin says Al Biden has to win. Michelle Obama says she's depressed because of what Trump is doing. Well, you know, I'm sure that millions of dollars that her and her husband made while they were in the White House will ease that depression. Yeah, and Jeff Trotter says that's why Obama put 70,000 Somalian refugees in Minnesota. Exactly. They understand the game. They know what's going on. They've been doing it. Look, they invented this chaos. They know chaos. The Republicans are always behind the curve when it has to do with chaos. They don't understand it. They don't know how to use it. Oh, but the Democrats do. And trust me, it's going to get much worse, probably, before it gets better. I want to thank you for joining the show today. I want to say God bless you. God bless America. God bless our children, protect our children, and peace.
You've been listening to Alfonso Ashworth, the Barry White of Podcast Radio. Go forth and share his message. I may be wrong, but I don't think so. Remember, no two people can ever occupy the same place at the same time. You were uniquely and wonderfully made. Born an original. Don't die a copy. God bless. Peace.